All right, welcome everybody to another Bay Trail Confidential. I'm Rodney Paul. We're just going to show you the last of our entries in the photography contest. We'll be voting on that. Oh, I forgot to put the poll up. Let me share the poll that you guys can take. Tell us where you're connecting from. I'll give you a few minutes to fill that out, and then I'll share the results with you. Stop this and get our deck going. Got some really cool stuff to talk about tonight, some great places that we're going to be really thrilled to share with you. I'm, again, Rodney Paul, joined by my co-host, Ethel Konopka. Ethel, how are you doing tonight? Oh, you got to unmute.
Sorry about that. I'm doing great. I'm really excited about this show tonight.
Yeah, me too. I've had such a good time working on it. We'll talk about that. We are brought to you by San Francisco City Guides. We are a nonprofit that has been doing walking tours of San Francisco for more than 40 years. And the good news is we're doing walking tours again, and we are being careful about it. I think we're limiting size of groups to about 15 or less. Everyone's wearing masks. We're being conservative, but there are walking tours going on. And the good news is I'm looking forward to in-person events pretty soon. I'm not going to announce anything tonight, but that is definitely on deck. Not going to talk too much about the Zoom features, except to tell you that we love the use of chat. Please use chat. Ethel's going to be monitoring things that you say, and you are going to be kept muted until the end, until the Q&A, except for my guests and some subject matter experts. But we really do want to hear what your thoughts are and answer any questions that you have. And then I'll just mention that we have show notes on our website, so you don't have to write down everything we talk about. We've got maps of many of the places and links to the things we're talking about. And we can add to that too. So if you tell us stuff in chat that is interesting and important, we will add that to the show notes. And I am joined by some really special guests. First of all, I want to mention Lee Huo from the Bay Trail Project. How are you doing tonight, Lee?
I'm doing extremely well, Rodney. Every time we talk about the Bay Trail, it makes me happy. And Alviso is one of those really interesting places I think that people will find fascinating.
And I think you got there for the first, we'll talk about Bay Trail cred in a minute, but Lee made his very first visit there not long ago, and I got to meet them for the first time in person there. So my guests are Gayle Frank from the Preservation Action Council of San Jose. Gayle, how are you tonight?
I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, Gayle's been great to work with on this Alviso topic that we're going to be talking about. And then after that, we're going to talk about Oracle Park with two really good friends of mine, Russ Bertetta and Homan. Russ, how are you tonight?
I'm good, Rodney. Nice to see you and be part of this.
Yeah, and you'll see that Russ has some rock posters in the background. He's actually doing on Sunday a rock poster virtual program that will be in my Friday email, and it's really going to be a lot of fun. Ann Homan is also a Ballpark tour guide. How are you tonight, Ann?
I'm doing very well.
And Ann's helped me a lot on the history that we're going to share with you of that location. You may know Oracle Park really well, but we're going to tell you some stuff about the history that you really don't know. We have some subject matter experts in the audience who are going to be monitoring chat and throwing in comments and maybe unmuting from time to time. And Barbara Call is with us from the San Francisco Bay Bird Observatory. We're also going to be talking about an event that they have, but we're really happy to have both of them. Ross was very helpful to me. We did a bike ride to Alviso together, and we went on the Stevens Creek Trail, which is just a fantastic connector to the Alviso area. So looking forward to their thoughts. This is the program for tonight. We're gonna talk about Alviso and my obsession now with it. And then Oracle Park, past, present, and future. And really trying to tell you things you might not know about Oracle Park, even if it is a place you go often. Then we're gonna have our photography contest. We've got some wonderful entries for you guys to vote on. And I've got a best of the Bay Trail update I wanna give you. And then we'll wrap it up, but we won't stop. We're going to keep going with Q&A as long as you guys want. I'm going to close the poll and share the results with you guys. So we're seeing that we have a lot of people in Contra Costa and Alameda counties, which is interesting because that happens to be where I live. But other folks around the Bay. And yeah, not a ton of people in the South Bay. Um, Maybe I didn't give people the right option for that. Um, but that's okay, because we're going to be enticing you to visit down there. And then we asked folks how many of you had visited some of these places. So Alviso, Marina County Park, not a ton of you have, and that doesn't surprise me. More have been to the Don Edwards Refuge because that spans a lot of different places. And then, yeah, lots of people have been to Oracle Park. And some of you have been there for games against the Dodgers, which are always my favorite times to be there. And seeing like lots of hikers, some bicyclists, some photographers. And oh, that's a leftover question from last time. And then we want to go over just real quickly our Bay Trail cred. And I think we're just going to kind of gloss over it. I know Ethel, yours hasn't changed much, but it's going to soon, right?
I'm coming off the injured reserve list pretty soon.
Cool. Lee added more, and I think it's looking very close to complete, Lee. Maybe 95% complete. And in mine,
Getting closer all the time.
Getting closer all the time. I only have these 2 sections here to do the entire Bay Trail. And I had plans over the past 2 weeks to go here, but I decided to stop in Alviso first. And what I've learned is Alviso is like the Bermuda Triangle of the Bay Trail. It's like once you go there, it's really hard to leave. And you're going to be hearing why in a couple minutes. But I am just enthralled with Alviso. Here's Gayle Frank, our expert on Alviso. In her Bay Trail cred is almost entirely in Alviso. If it's not clear, by the way, I didn't really explain this. This is showing where people have been on the Bay Trail and then also like whereabout they live. Ian Homan lives in San Francisco, knows a lot about the San Francisco sections of the Bay Trail and some of the parts in Marin. And then we've got Russ Bertetta, who lives down in the south, on the peninsula, and he knows some sections near his house. And then, of course, he's been a guide at the ballpark. How long have you been a guide at Oracle Park, Russ?
Well, I've been a guide since 14, but I also worked in guest services in 13.
So sometimes I tell people, you don't feel like it's something bad if you haven't been to a ton of places on the Bay Trail, because chances are the places you have been, you know really well. And I think you're a good example of that, Russ. I had someone, Tom Lent, sent me an email, and he said he wanted his Bay Trail cred to be, he wanted me to see it. And then I said, oh, I want to show this to people. And it gave me the idea that I want to get a ton of these Bay Trail cred maps. They are kind of time consuming the way I do it, which is with a paint program, but we're working on a way that might make it a lot easier. And I would love to get Bay Trail cred maps from absolutely everybody. I'd love to have like hundreds, because to me, I almost see this as like a self-portrait of how you use our public space in the Bay Area, and particularly, of course, the Bay Trail. So thank you, Tom, for sending me that. Let's talk about the Alviso obsession that I'm now ensnared with. I started going there. I actually hadn't been there before the pandemic started, and went there sometime last year, and then decided we should do a show on it, and have just had a wonderful time exploring it. And every time I go, I just find new stuff. Here's like a delightful little it's got a little historic downtown, and it's got this sign, established 1852. So it's been there a long time. Here's where it's located. So it's really at the bottom of the bay, close to San Jose. I live up here. This is actually about the farthest you can get from me and be on the Bay Trail. So it's just my luck that this place that I just love is kind of a hike for me to get to, but it's well worth the effort of going down there. Here are the takeaways from my explorations, and we'll be hearing from Gayle also on this. First of all, I'm doing a lot of biking, and the connector trails in the South Bay are just amazing. They're so useful and safe and scenic. Alviso is a place with fascinating history. We'll talk about that. Good place for avoiding crowds. There's a lot of wide open space there, particularly in the 2 parks we're going to tell you about. The best birding, in my opinion, is at the Don Edwards National Wildlife Refuge. There's just a lot of really great bird life to see there. Fun place for levee bike rides. riding along the, you can ride for, 5, 10 miles on the levees, and you're just kind of by yourself. And then they have free boat tours of the Alviso Slough, but they're not going on right now. They're going to hopefully resume in the summer. We like to talk about mobility, and the Alviso Marina County Park has hard packed dirt paths, so I think it would be fine if you are like in a walker or a wheelchair. That should work for you. Town sidewalks are good, but not perfect. Don Edwards, it's more challenging, although that may have changed because they had their parking lot closed, but they just reopened it recently. So it's actually easier to get to places with ADA access there. And then I have to say, biking in that town is great because there are stop signs at almost every intersection, and you can really ride very safely there. This is, by the way, this is my no stone unturned biking around Alviso. I went pretty much everywhere, and I'll just show you this. This kind of gives you a sense of me exploring the town paths. It's the town roads, and it's just a really delightful place. It's very, very flat. And on a weekday, there's hardly any traffic. It's kind of a sleepy town, but a place that has all kinds of magic to reveal to you once you start spending time there. And I'm just gonna advance that. Stop that. Okay. This again are the connector trails I was talking about. This is the Stevens Creek Trail that takes you to the Bay Trail. And this is the Guadalupe River Trail that takes you basically from downtown San Jose. You go by the airport, and then you're in Alviso. So it's very safe to get there by bike. And then I came from Milpitas BART, and that's also really, really safe. I later on tried going from the Warm Springs BART station. That didn't impress me so much. There was a lot of traffic on some of the roads around the station, but that's going to get better. Here's an example of what these connector trails look like. And then also mass transit. We had someone last month remind us that it's important to talk about that. So there is good light rail access from the Milpitas BART station that will take you to this point. And there's a bus, the number 59 bus, that'll take you right into Alviso. So it is accessible on mass transit. There's also ample parking there. So lots of ways to get there. This is just showing you that it's on, this is on Bay Trail map number 7, if you have those map cards. And then here's probably a better way of looking where these places are that we're going to discuss. And I want to remind everybody that my website has these maps. So if you want to go there later on, you can just go to the website, access this map, and see where these different places are. And we could not, I had a hard time like restraining myself from picking a lot of places. And I think your big takeaway is going to be there are a lot of really cool places to visit in Alviso. Anything you want to add to that before we jump in, Gayle?
No.
And here's another, there's wonderful murals there. And this is not a to scale map, but it's kind of a nice way of looking at it. And we're going to be talking about the county park, which is here. We're going to talk about this town of Drawbridge. We're going to talk about the Don Edwards National Wildlife Refuge that you access here, although you can access it through the park. So lots of cool stuff. But we're going to start with something I actually just found for the first time yesterday. It's a ceramic mural of the history of Alviso done by Sam Tubiolo. And I just love this. I think it's such a great way of telling the story of this town. This is kind of what it's about 400 feet or so long. It's like about half a block on this side of this wall, and then going on the next street. This is Catherine and Gold Streets. This is a pumping station. They actually have to pump the water out of Alviso to keep the place from being inundated. It's about 12 feet below sea level. But let's take a look at this thing. This mural, it starts off with the Native American presence in that area. And it also shows wildlife, they've got these wonderful butterflies, which I just had to use that for my background. And then it shows the arrival of Westerners in the 19th century. And I think this is showing us the railroad coming in kind of these little houses. You can see sailboats coming to there, and it's like a kind of a very active dock. And then the mural shows more of the industry. So, that's basically the history of this place, is that people came there. They thought it would be a place of industry. They thought it would be a port, but it turns out that it's really hard to keep it dredged. And they did some farming there, but and also they have salt ponds. But now it's really being restored to its natural ecosystem. And the mural ends with that, showing bird life. And I think it's, to me, a very hopeful message that, like, this place has had a lot of change, but now it's becoming much more hospitable for bird life. And I also, speaking of art, this artist, Sarah Newton, I got to see her stuff recently. She's got these wonderful etchings of places on the Bay Trail. And I've got 2 of her images from Alviso. There's a link to her website on my website. And her stuff is really, really amazing. And this stuff is, to do an etching like this, it's really painstaking, but beautiful work. And it was so fun to hear that she loves the Bay Trail. So I think we're going to need to do a show that has Sarah on it and spotlights her wonderful art. But it's cool that it has an Alviso connection. Our second place that we want to talk about is Alviso Marina County Park. And Gayle, what should we know about this park?
Well, this was dedicated, the marina itself was dedicated in 2005, and the park is about 19 acres, a lot smaller than the Don Edwards Refuge for sure. And there's no dogs on the trails, but the dogs can stay in the paths and the picnic areas.
Yeah, you can see like these no dog signs here, but you are, yeah, like you're saying, you could be like here with your dogs.
Yeah. And people can launch their little kayaks or boats, no fees for the launching and all that. So,
To that.
but what I'd like to do is walk out there and just look out, and it's just so calm and peaceful.
Yeah,
And the walkways are nice to walk out into the marsh.
and this, by the way, is me and Lee and one of the park officials who gave us a guided tour. This was about a week ago in Alviso. And yeah, you can see they've got these funny little structures here that were used to secure access to the marina when it was an active marina. It's not, this is not a marina area anymore. But let's see, we'll be seeing more of the bird life. There's a lot of these, I think these are black-necked stilts. I think, by the way, our bird observatory folks are welcome to chime in on chat about the bird life that we're seeing there. Ross,
Rodney, I was just going to say really quickly, I don't seem to be able to put a file up here, but I have a rare bird sighting that happened in Alviso that had all the bird people flocking to that boat launch you were just talking about. So not quite sure how to share it, but I can
let
put it.
me show.
Yeah.
This is like that boat area. Is this where you're talking about?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. We were all going crazy about a red-necked grebe, and I have one of the best photographers' pictures of it. So I'll try and figure out how to get it to you.
Okay, and we can always put that on our website. Thanks, Barbara. And we also want to mention that they have these boat tours that go from the county park during non-COVID time. So this is something we hope we'll get again soon, and they're free, which is pretty cool. You get to go out into the slough, the Alviso slough.
Rodney, do we know why it's no longer a marina?
Gayle, my guess would be it had to do with it kind of filling in the
It was so filled in with all the reeds and grasses that you couldn't even get boats into the yacht club for a while until they dredged it out a little bit. But you'll see pictures later on of what the slough looked like, and with all the ships, quite a few years ago. But it got so polluted, and the reeds and grasses were so heavy that it was unusable until they worked on it and finished it in 2004.
Yeah, I mean, the original idea that people had, like in the 19th century, was this is going to be a major port.
Mhm.
This was going to be a port on a scale of San Francisco. It was actually for about a year the capital of California. But because of that silt, it didn't happen. One thing you'll notice is some of the streets are really wide, and I think it's because they expected them to be supporting all this industry. So there's 2 parks in Alviso. We've been talking about the the county park, but there's also the Don Edwards National Wildlife Refuge, which you generally access over here. And the Don Edwards Refuge, many of you probably know this, spans a lot of places along the southern part of the bay. So this is up by the Dumbarton Bridge and the Coyote Hills Regional Park. There's sections over here by Palo Alto. I think this is the new Ravenswood area that was just opened up recently in Palo Alto. And then some areas north of the bridge and by Redwood City. But we're going to be talking about the Don Edwards areas here, which is just a great place for bird life. And I'll show a couple pictures, and then Barbara will probably want you to tell us a bit about the birds that you can experience there. Again, you're looking out, you're on levees. You've got some wonderful views of these ponds, the salt evaporator ponds. I've been enjoying biking on the levees. It's really great. And then I'm always talking about park benches. It's got some really great places for park benches for me to eat my lunch. So this was one where I had a very enjoyable lunch. So Barbara, tell us more about the bird life of Don Edwards Wildlife Refuge.
Well, I think you're looking at, if we're talking about the one that's in the South Bay still, right, Rodney?
Yes, yeah,
Yes.
around Alviso.
Yes, yes. So I think that it's so unique because you start in the parking lot, or you can start on the road actually. And I spent a lot of time there with my scope, which I bought a small scope this year, 2 pounds, believe it or not. The scope is under 2 pounds, and looking at the dowitchers. And then you start walking and you go up to the nature center there, and you can see everything from the sparrows all the way through to the yellow legs, which are beautiful birds. And there's usually always one, always by itself. And I can remember seeing it for the first time. And those are the American avocets, of course. And then as you get further, closer to the salt ponds, which are further out, then you can see the pelicans. So you're walking all the way from the small shorebirds to the bigger shorebirds, all the way up to the pelicans. So there are very varying degrees of different kinds of birds as you walk out. And that's why it's such an amazing place, because you can see up to, I did some notes, is that there was a couple that went out there this morning, 2 people, I don't know if they're a couple, 2 people went out there this morning at 7:30 a.m. and saw 50 species of birds in 49 minutes.
Oh my God.
Including a barn owl. So if you wanted to, even amateur birders, these were not amateur birders, but even amateur birders, if you wanted to go out, you would see 25 to 30 species of birds in an hour and a half. And that makes it a very unique place. But of course, people travel from all over the world to see birds in the Bay Area. So
yeah, it's really, we had a little joke on some of the early shows, which I know my wife didn't like, where I talked about becoming a birder against my will. And this is a place where something like that happens, where you just cannot help but get drawn in and captivated by it.
absolutely. And may I just mention, Rodney, for people that are more interested, certainly can talk more about the tools that help people figure out where to go and what's there and how to learn more about what they can identify and how to identify.
Great. And we're going to be getting more information from the San Francisco Bay Bird Observatory. In fact, we're going to talk about an event you guys have coming up. But now we want to move on to another, this is another place that could be a whole show in and of itself. And it's this ghost town called Drawbridge. So there's actually a ghost town that's actually beyond the Don Edwards. Well, I guess technically it's still considered the Don Edwards Refuge, but this is the furthest point you can get to before you hit the not the Coyote Creek. Is that, well, you hit a body of water. I think it is the Coyote Creek. And you can't really get beyond that. There is a bridge here, but it's the railroad bridge. And we do not recommend, it's against the law, and it's a really bad idea to try to go across that bridge. But you from this point here, you can actually get a pretty good view of this ghost town. And there's some really nice park benches here. And I think this might be one of the remotest places on the Bay Trail to sit at a park bench and eat your lunch. And I delighted in being there. And here are some pictures. Gayle, do you want to add some things about Drawbridge that we should know about?
Yeah, this is the only ghost town the Bay Area has. And in 1876, when the train went through and they needed to hire somebody to raise the 2 drawbridges, so there was an employee that lived there, And then all of a sudden the train stopped and more people would get off, and they loved the hunting and for the ducks and the fishing, and then pretty soon the visitors and swimming and recreation. And by the 1920s, we had gambling and brothels and all kinds of things. And so then the pollution really deteriorated the whole place. They never had water or electricity. And the last fellow that lived there left in 1979.
Wow. Yeah, it's really cool. Like I said, we could do a whole show about this place. And maybe we really should, because it's a very interesting history. But there's more to tell you guys about. So we have, tell us about the Bayside Canning Company, Gayle.
Well, this was the first major industry in the South Bay owned by the Chinese. So it was quite a big deal. And in their peak in the 1920s, they employed about 400 to 500 people every season. And the Chu family had a cannery up in San Francisco. And after the earthquake in 1906, they came down and started their cannery and renamed it the Bayside in Alviso. So that this shows you the rear view of what's left of the cannery buildings, and this is on the levee going south toward the yacht club, and a lot of the Bayside buildings were destroyed when they had to build the levee. And you can see that it's in pretty bad condition.
Yeah,
This we're looking here is the one that faces the street with the stucco front, and it's not looking good.
Yeah, and this video actually had audio of Barbara giving her walking tour. So she does walking tours of the historic district in Alviso. And I think you're hoping to do that again sometime fairly soon, right? But we don't have a date.
I hope so. It hasn't been that long since I did one, so I wasn't really planning on doing another one this year. But if I have enough people, and they are limited, it's space limited, because we now use the transmitter and receivers.
Yeah, well, we could definitely, Bay Trail Confidential could definitely get you an audience. We want to make sure it's safe and all that. So we're waiting for everyone to get vaccinated, but this stuff is coming soon, we hope. And then there's all these cool houses in the town. So this is just like walking around the town. There's a geodesic dome house. And I think the Wikipedia entry tells you like when it was built. This is another place that's on your tour, right, Gayle?
Yes, absolutely. It was from 1887, and Susan Ortley Lane, or Tilden, she married David Tilden. And after he died, she ran the general merchandise store, which was right next door. That was the oldest building in Alviso, and it fell down a few years ago. But her house was the finest house in Alviso, and it probably still is. It's well maintained and really beautiful. It's an Italianate style of architecture.
So I probably need to pick up the pace. So because we're giving you guys so much. We're just basically the takeaway: get to Alviso, check this stuff out. There's some other really nice murals on some of the buildings, showing you more of the history of Alviso. I really liked these, and then there's this whole history. It was supposed to be like this major residential development called New Chicago, and this was like the plan. This is not what ended up happening because of all the sinking of the land. Gayle, you found this advertisement for that. And so it's actually to this day known as the New Chicago Marsh. And some of the street names like Michigan Avenue, Grand Boulevard, Wabash Street, those are taken from Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
What about this place, the Wade Warehouse?
Oh, this one is really fantastic history-wise, because the Harry Wade family were the ones that came through the Death Valley 49ers, and they were the only family that split off on their own and got through to San Fernando Valley with their wagon. So they ended up in Alviso, and they have quite a history. And this is a wonderful old brick warehouse that they used, because they had stagecoaches and freighting. And then if you see a little teeny roof on the very left side, that was their residence, which is really looking bad these days too.
So some really cool old buildings. And then we'll finish with the South Bay Yacht Club, which I know is near and dear to your heart, Gayle. Your
Yes.
family were members, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. My grandfather was very active in this, and it was founded in 1892, and the building itself was built in 1903, and it was moved in 1983. About 15. Well, the subsidence of the land was about 15 feet, and so they had to build the levees. So they raised the yacht club up and moved it south a little bit, and that's what it looked like before. It's just amazing how, it's hard to imagine what it was like.
Yeah. Well, Gayle, I can't wait to go on your tour. You bring this history to life, and I gotta tell you, I'm definitely not done with Alviso. It's like the more you go, the more you want to, just
Yeah.
keep taking it in, learning about the history. So thank you very much, Gayle. I think you said you have a meeting related to preservation in San
Yeah,
Jose.
I should probably tune into that.
So Gayle won't be able to stick around for Q&A, unfortunately. But here's the information about her organization, Preservation Action Council of San Jose. I'm really grateful for what your organization does, because we have to preserve this history, and it's a very important part of our community, our heritage. So thank you
Yeah,
very much, Gayle. Great having you on Bay Trail Confidential.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
And now we're going to move on from a place that not that many people know about to a place that hopefully pretty much everyone knows something about, Oracle Park. And I'm joined by Russ Bertetta and Ann Homan to talk about the history of this place. Ann, why don't you, well, let's first of all talk about our takeaways. There's fascinating history in this area. It has not always been just like land. It's also the gateway to a bike and pedestrian path called the Blue Greenway, which will eventually go all the way from the ballpark to San Francisco's southern border through the naval shipyard. And so it's really a great part of our infrastructure that is not all of it's completed yet, but it will be in the years ahead. But the catalyst for this change in that area, in the Mission Bay area, really was the opening of the ballpark in the year 2000. So we want you to just think about like how much change has happened in this place. Here's what we see now, but if you go back in history, it's quite a different place. And Ann, I know you said this is a great book if you want to know more about the history of Mission Bay.
That's absolutely right. A lot of what I'm going to talk about is in this book. A group called the Mission Creek Conservancy was really a compilation of a whole bunch of different environmental groups and residents of this area, hired Nancy Olmsted to research the history of Mission Bay, because their point was to make sure the developers of the land that's there, which we're going to talk about, they would know what is the history and not to step on it, and also to try and bring back parts of it to something that is similar to what was there before. So if we can go to the next slide. This slide, I love this. An artist by the name of Mark Brest van Kempen, he wanted to say, what would Mission Bay have looked like before the Spanish arrived in 1776? And you've got to imagine that you're actually standing on Potrero Hill. You're looking north to Nob Hill, as the sign points there. Now follow the land to the right side, the far right side, where you can see a hill. That hill there, I'm guessing, is Rincon Hill. So that's where the Bay Bridge is now anchored. Now this bay was very shallow. It was rich, full of eelgrass, all sorts of mollusks, supported many different bird species, mammals. And it's not in this picture, but there was a grizzly bear or two wandering around this area too. There were several villages of Native Americans who lived here, and this was perfect for them. And there was also from here a creek, Mission Creek, that went up the hill. That's what it's now called. And they could actually paddle the way up that, where there was another village up there. And of course, that is where the Spanish eventually built the mission. So this was around for about 5,000 years before the Europeans came in. Let's go to the next slide. Part of what you really need to consider, and we're certainly talking about that with Alviso, is where's the water? Where was the water? And how does it inform what's going on with the land? So the blue lines are the seasonal freshwater wetlands and creeks. The royal blue are the creeks coming down from Twin Peaks. I think you can see that sort of on the left side. There was a lagoon where the mission is, one reason it was chosen as a site. And then we go down to the pink area, and that is Mission Bay. In reality, I think there were about 240 acres of this area was actually water all the time. A lot of it, of course, was wetlands. And there was tidal wetlands mixing in, obviously, in the wintertime with more fresh water back and forth. It's also a reason why this land, which goes on the north side of the picture, the creek that's coming down there is near where Civic Center is. So when you go back to the destruction of San Francisco in 1906 with the earthquake, they really didn't think much about where they were building stuff. It's reason why that, and in 1989, there was a lot of destruction in areas where buildings were not reinforced. Now, the creek itself is the blue line in the middle of the pink creek. And if you can look at the far right upper corner, you see the letters STE. That stands for Steamboat Point. That's where the ballpark is. Now let's go to the next picture that we have. This map, very early on in the early 1850s, so many people who came to get rich from gold did not. So they had to find other things to do. And they clearly figured out that real estate was really the thing that they could make money at. So a lot of times we talk about the financial district area, selling water lots there, and all of those buildings were built. Well, this part of town, the same thing happened. Mission Creek was divided up, and Mission Bay, I should say, and was sold off to the highest bidder. Who actually owned the land for real, and whether you really bought it was a good question. But eventually it all worked out that the railroad barons, they basically took control of the land because San Francisco was very much becoming an international destination and needed big shipping, needed a big place for warehouses. I think you can see by Mission Street is marked out on this map that it says Plank Road. That's how they built this one road that went from the Mission to the downtown area. And the planks would just sink into the ground and disappear because, again, the bay, the wetlands were just there all the time. The other thing to point out are where the huge sand dunes were, the 100-foot tall sand dunes. One near where the Palace Hotel is, Rincon Hill, and then Townsend. There is the third one there, which was where the ballpark is now, was about a block away from there. There was a 100-foot tall sand dune there. Let's go to the next slide. This one gives you a real overview. By 1868, look at the shipping industry that's going. There are factories everywhere, and they're building houses and everything. So the decision was the best way to get this land produced out of Mission Bay is build a bridge that blocks off the San Francisco Bay. So that's what that's called. It's the Long Bridge. It also happened that George Hearst he built a racetrack that was over at Bayview, and he wanted people to be able to go to his racetrack. Let's go to the next picture. It'll show us the Long Bridge there. It was put in there, that's 4th Street, joins up with 3rd Street, and it had railroad tracks on it. and could have carts with 24 people in it. And that's how people, workers, and then people who wanted to go to the racetrack could go back and forth on this. Meanwhile, they were filling in the bay. Let's go to the, oh, you can see also the ballpark in that picture. Note that one. And I also have written in a Mission Rock development. We'll talk about that. Oh, did I show the other thing? I know it's not on that picture, sorry. Santa Fe, there it is, Santa Fe Bridge. There were two different train lines that came into this area, pointing to how busy this area was for delivering goods, taking goods off the ships, and then delivering the trains around really the country. Let's go to the next. There we are. I love this picture. This is 3rd and 4th Street. So this is what was the Long Bridge. Now it's all filled in. That may be a lumber factory. There was a big one there. There's a building in the background, a very big warehouse back there. That's the China Basin building. That still exists today, and it's across from the ballpark. 3rd Street, if you went down that, you would come to what was the Lefty O'Doul Bridge that's eventually built there. So that's all of that together. And on this one, you really get to see the railroad lines. And what I like most about this, the one that's on the north side that's circled in red there, that was the new train station built after the earthquake at 3rd Street for the Southern Pacific Line. And note all the little black lines that are going out to all the piers. Those are all spurs from the railroads so that ships would come in, they'd unload their goods into train carts that would then go back and on the trains to be moved. So there's one on the Southern Pacific is there, and on the other side is the Santa Fe line. Eventually, these two merged together. Now, there's another interesting thing on this picture, which is see Mission Rock on the lower right. Now, when Mission Bay was a bay, Mission Rock was literally a landmark for all the ships coming into the bay that would want to turn into Mission Bay to unload. So it was very important at the time, but it changes as I'll point out in the next couple pictures we show. Let's move on to the next one. Oh, good, there it is. There's the ballpark again to just see where it was located at that. Now, this one shows you, again, the ballpark. You can see Mission Creek. You can see China Basin, where Rodney is moving things around there, out into San Francisco Bay, and Pier 48 and Pier 50 are being built there. This area that we're pointing to with between 48 and 50 is where the new Mission Rock development will come. Now, an interesting thing is Mission Rock is out still not attached to Pier 50, but ships would come into that. It'd take a little bit longer before it does that. Let's move on to the next one. So ships would come in, they would come into the creek going as far as 9th Street. And they would unload from these things. The longshoremen and the warehouse workers had really very hard and dirty work to do, but it really supplied people with food and everything else they might need. They would take these, like the bananas, and they'd put it on a refrigerated train car to then ship them out. One of the stories that came out, this was one of the dirtiest of the jobs to do, because when they would pack these up in Central America or South America, there would often be tarantulas, there would be even small monkeys would actually hitch a ride with that. So you never quite knew what was going to be, when you picked those up, what might come out of it. Let's go on to the next one. All right, this is 1955. You really see it all built out. A lot of what you see there is still here today, not all of it, but mainly can you see there's Pier 48, and then next to it is Pier 50, and you can see it's now completely engulfed Mission Rock. So you can't see it anymore with that. Now this scene that is here, you could almost freeze time at this point because everything changed. After World War II, container shipping became the way to move goods internationally. And that meant you didn't need nearly as many workers because you just pick up the whole train load full of stuff and you'd put it on the train and move it out or onto trucks. The highways were built, so trains weren't as necessary. So all of this stuff here, it really became obsolete. Total of about 303 acres is there. It's amazing what's in the dirt there, but now what's going to happen to it? Let's go on to the next slide. I like this slide. It's from the 1930s, but I have a feeling things probably looked like this in the 50s and 60s, maybe into the 70s anyway. You notice the train tracks that are in the walkway there, and we can see the China Basin building to the west where that red arrow is painted, and then the Lefty-O dual bridge, which we still have today. And what would be on the right? That would be, let's go to the next slide. Oracle Park. That's where it is now today. I think, Russ, you have a few things you wanted to say about the architecture when they chose this as the place to put the ballpark. Oh, let's go back to that one. Oh, can we get back?
Well,
There it is.
I think Russ wants me to show a picture that shows the ballpark with the skyline. So it's
Oh, no, this one's good because it works with the one that we just had, that picture with the trucks. But this is the area, that looks out onto McCovey Cove. It's the in a sense, the arcade, the port walk there that you see, which is part of the Bay Trail. And that back facade of the building was supposed to be brick, just like most of the other parts of the ballpark. If you've been to the ballpark, you notice that the brick facade basically makes up the whole outside of it. But one of the architect, a fellow by the name of Joe Spear, was the architect. And he was kind of following Peter McGowan's idea that the ballpark should really reflect the local look and the feel. And so one of Joe Spear's friends said, don't do a brick facade, paint the concrete a light color so that it would reflect off of the bay, of what we now call McCovey Cove. So that's why that area has that look that is distinct from the rest of the ballpark.
Great.
And you're up.
Thanks, Russ.
That's pretty cool. So with the ballpark, it was a huge success when it built, and Russ is going to talk more about it later. But it meant that this Mission Bay project, which had been talked about for over 20 years, was finally going to come to fruition. Developers put their money into it. They figured it out. In fact, this picture taken in 2003, on the north side of the creek, you can see the first of the buildings, mixed-use housing that was built close to the ballpark first. And on the right side, they're beginning to work on creating Mission Creek Park. And there are these 20 houseboats that have been there since the early 1960s. Suddenly, the people that own these houseboats had to get curtains because it was changing dramatically for them. There are additionally 35 pleasure boat slips that are there. So the bridges on Mission Creek, the Lefty-O dual bridge and the 4th Street Bridge, both of them, they're trunnion bascule. They will open up so that the ships can still come and go as they would have back in the days of shipping. Let's go to the next slide. Yes, so when you're going to build a new neighborhood, you got to build streets, put in lights, and the buildings that you're seeing at the end of that, this was the anchor part of the business of Mission Creek, which is UCSF's research campus. Of the 303 acres, UCSF has 43. And by now, they have built up most of it. But here's the start. The first building opened in 2003. Let's go and see what it's looking like now. Here's a picture today. Lots of housing. There are 6,000 housing units almost completed at this point. And that's Mission Creek Park that you were looking at there. There are trails, bike trails on both sides of the creek. There's 47 acres of open parks and land through there of public space. So it's a great place. It's amazing how it's transformed from when they first started. And there is the ballpark.
Yeah, and I know, Russ, you wanted to tell us another story about the design of the ballpark that this picture kind of points out.
Yeah, so Rodney mentioned that the ballpark opened in 2000. Construction began in December of 97. But even prior to that, the Giants were trying to figure out what way they wanted the ballpark to look out onto. The original plan that Peter McGowan wanted was that that home plate would be in the right field corner so that the fans would be looking out onto this beautiful skyline of downtown San Francisco, the Bay Bridge, etc. But compared to Candlestick Park, the Giants wanted to make everything right this time. Candlestick Park had been built with little planning whatsoever. And so the Giants were determined not to let this happen. So, of course, if you'd ever been out to Candlestick Park area, that was known for its cold and the wind. So the Giants did a series of wind studies, including creating a scale model of the ballpark and sending that scale model up to University of California at Davis in a wind tunnel. And so the results came back very, very bad as far as the Giants were concerned. They said if you build the ballpark facing downtown and out on towards San Francisco Bay, towards the Bay Bridge, you will have basically the same conditions that you had at Candlestick Park. So that was not what the Giants wanted to hear. And so they began to look for alternatives and finally basically changing the direction of the ballpark so that it faces directly east. And now certain fans have a view of downtown and others can see more of the East Bay Hills and so forth. But as we tell them on our tours, all seats are good seats. So that was the some of the pitfalls of building the ballpark.
Yeah, Barbara asked when the ballpark was completed. I think it was opening day of the 2000 season.
Well, yeah, the ballpark was completed on April the 11th in 2000. In fact, some people say that they were still flushing the toilets about 11 o'clock in the morning, flushing them so that they, like all at once, just in case that happened, to make sure that they worked. So yeah, construction was going on right up until probably the gates opened, which would be around 11 o'clock.
So we probably should move along with this topic because there's a lot more we could say. The good news is that Russ, Ann, and I are all tour guides for the Giants, and we haven't found out when we're going to be giving tours again, but you can learn a lot more about it on those tours. Russ, you do keep track of where people come when they visit the ballpark, what countries they come from.
I do, and I just pulled this out. I have my little book. I started keeping a journal of where my guests come from. I started this on November 1st, 2015, and I had one going up until I think February 25th of 2020. But all I ask is where my guests come from. And again, this is just me, and I'm one of 20 tour guides. But for me, I have had people from 49 states, only West Virginia, and maybe Ann or Rodney have had somebody from that state. I've had 9 of the 11 Canadian provinces, and I've had over 40 countries around the world, from Africa into Russia, into Southeast Asia. A lot of people from Australia. They're some of our best guests, and it's really great to meet all these people. As the ballpark, I think we do over 20,000 guests a year in tours, 200 and something private tours each year. So it's really a destination for people all over the world.
Well, that's all fine and good, but how are we going to get some people from Kazakhstan? I mean that's like a glare. I mean, we got some work to do. Also, yeah, Libya.
We'll send you over there, Rodney, to do one of your Bay Area tours and stir up interest in Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan Confidential.
Yeah.
We many of you know that there's a way you can see the games for free. This is called the Knot Hole Gang area in right field. That is actually not open right now because of COVID. But it is kind of cool that like right off of the Bay Trail, there is free Major League Baseball usually. And so hopefully we'll get that back.
And one of the things is you can actually now, even though of course they have tarps up over all of that, you can look in the crack there so you can see the field. I was just there a couple days ago, looking on there and seeing the green grass.
And Amy in the audience says that she has some friends from Kazakhstan, and so we're going to get them on your tour, Russ. We have that to look forward to.
Okay, all right.
I actually have a great story about the Left-O Dual Bridge, which I am not going to share with you tonight because I want to move this along. But there is now a protected, what is it, Class 4 bike lane?
Yeah, so you're learning, Rodney. You've got the terminology down. It is a Class 4 bike lane.
Yeah, and we do want to talk about the Left-O Dual Bridge sometime in the future. As far as the future for the area, so much has been done, as we talked about in Alviso, to make it more hospitable to bird life. And my good friends, the Schnetzlers, wonderful photographers, have captivating images that they've taken in that area, often in the early morning or at night. Folks from the Bird Observatory can maybe tell us what Barbara, what are we looking at? What kind of bird? Oh, you're muted. I think.
Okay, I was looking for mute. Well, those are pelicans.
Yep,
And
pelicans.
it looks like, no, okay, so, and brown pelicans, yes. So gulls, seagulls are a lovely term, but we need to be a little more specific. So they're probably California gulls, I would expect, out there. Black crowned night herons. So black crowned night herons right now, if you want to see a whole bunch of them, you can always wander down to my part of the world and go on the Bay Trails around the end of San Antonio and 101, or Embarcadero and 101 into the Baylands. So beautiful number of night herons out there.
Thanks,
They don't
Barbara.
look orange like that. They're actually white when they're breeding.
I guess it's the time of day.
Yeah, that's a beautiful color, but
We do want to mention the current development going on. I know Anne has been looking into this. You can actually get updates on the progress of the Mission Rock development. It's a pretty big mess right now, but it's pretty exciting what we have coming our way. And Anne, you were telling me that we were talking about resiliency.
Yes.
Like these little pools here have been put in to protect the land from rising sea level, right?
Right. They're actually shipping in a whole bunch of dirt to raise that whole part 4 feet, because they're aiming for what it should be at 2,100. And the way the parks are built, all the plants that you see there, they're ones that could be saltwater tolerant. There's a wind, you can notice how the trees are planted. They're planted to be a windbreak. Anybody who's been to that part of town knows the west wind can be very strong. And those will be tidal pools. There'll be a way to pull kayaks up out of the water from there. So they really want to support all the activities that people want to do there, but also be aware that certain times of the year, certainly with king tides, it could flood. The buildings themselves, the idea is that they're really doing a lot with energy conservation and water conservation. So they're actually going to have a water treatment plant on the site so that they can use for all the non-potable uses of water, they will use recycled water that they produce themselves for it. That's going to be really exciting. The housing, about 1,500 housing units, 40% will be affordable in all rentals. And Visa is going to take one of those high rises for office. So they do have somebody who's actually going to pay the bills for that.
Great. Well, thanks, Anne and Russ, for sharing your deep knowledge of that area. And Anne, I think you've been thinking about maybe doing a walking tour. Maybe we could have a Bay Trail Confidential walking tour with Anne sometime in the next couple months as we get more comfortable with where we are with vaccination.
Yeah, it's got to be more comfortable. Yes, I would love to do that.
Coming soon, no date yet, but something we're thinking about. I'm talking about these things, being optimistic.
Yeah.
But also we want to be very careful and there is concern about the variants. So we're not out of the woods yet, but if we do get out of the woods, we got some really fun in-person plans.
Yes, sure.
So we have our photography contest, Plants on the Bay Trail. We got some wonderful submissions. Here are our contestants. And just again, every month we've gotten great entries, and I want to thank each of them for submitting them. We had 7 entries. We narrowed them down to 5 that you guys will vote on, and I'll go ahead and deploy the poll. And everyone's going to vote on which one you like the best. I'm not going to do what I did last time, which was asking you which one you like second best, because that made things really confusing. So here's A, B, C, D, and E. I should tell you that the criteria was flowers and other plants on the Bay Trail. I'm going to go through those 5 again. So E, D, C, B, and A. And I'm going to keep thinking about it. And I want you guys to know that the winner gets a set of Bay Trail map cards, which is, these things are great. We use them a lot. We show a lot of the maps. You can actually, there is an online version, but it's really fun to have them to walk around with. And they're brought to you this month. We've got a new person working on this. Serena Seaton works for the Bay Trail Project in the Association of Bay Area Governments. And I told her that I wanted to recognize her. And I also wanted to ask her like what her favorite places are on the Bay Trail. So each month she's going to have what we call a Serena selection. And this month it's the mountain view sections of the Bay Trail, which ties in well with Alviso.
Yeah, so that's exactly where I was talking about. That's the end of San Antonio Road, and that's the Charleston Slough area. And I highly recommend that area. So
Cool. So
that's
it's a great
shoreline.
place for birds too.
That's Shoreline Lake. Yep.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to close the poll in 5 seconds and share the results with you. And we have a pretty clear winner. So people liked B. I think they were all really nice. Oh, I got to share that with you guys. So B came in first place. Second place was A. Second and third place get a Bay Trail map, by the way. So A is second place. I should mention, by the way, B is Alviso. It happens to be the slough in Alviso. Wonderful shot by Ron Horry, who has provided a lot of photos for today's show. So thank you, Ron. This, I believe, is Sears Point Restoration Area. Hopefully I'm getting that right. Let me just make sure. Yeah, that is the Sears Point Restoration Area submitted by Dragana Monson, who is a fellow guide with me at the what I call SF UMA, the San Francisco Unnamed Museum of Art. And third place is going to be E. And I am not going to remember who submitted E. If it was you and you want to tell us in chat, I apologize for not knowing that off the top of my head. But I really liked all these pictures, and I thank everyone for submitting them. And I just wanted to say that our next month's contest is going to be park benches on the Bay Trail, on or near the Bay Trail. And when I say on or near the Bay Trail, what I mean is it's either on the Bay Trail, or if it's a park that has the Bay Trail running through it, I consider that entire park to be fair game. And you will go to our website to submit your photo. Deadline's going to be basically a week before the show, and the show is going to be on May 5th. And that's kind of a cool thing because I'm trying to find the best park bench on the Bay Trail. We're gonna actually do what we call Best of the Bay Trail, but I do want to recognize everyone who submitted photographs for the show. And these names are all on my website, and there are links to those with asterisks to their web pages on my website. So go to that show notes page. And now, Barbara, I want you to tell us about this event, the Bird Photo Big Day on Saturday.
Sure. So Kitty and Bill are still on this call. They're lurking, and they actually came up with this idea. They're also volunteers for SFBBO and actually expert birders, and they live on Mount Hamilton. And the idea is twofold. Is to, just like a big day, a birding big day, is to find and count as many species of a bird you can, species of birds you can in 24 hours. So some people have seen the Owen Wilson movie about it, and you go out and go around the world trying to find as many species as you can in a day. Well, this is kind of like that, is that we're trying to photograph collectively as many people as possible, going out there with cameras, photograph as many species as we can in one day. In the fall, actually, I'll talk about the spring. We've done it twice, but in the spring last year, I believe, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we photographed 152 species in 24 hours. So that's a lot. I think we saw about 200 species. We actually got 152 photographed. I believe that was by about 60 photographers. So that was a lot to get. So I've got it right. Okay. And then our goal this time is probably to get over 170 pictures of birds. And the second part of this is to then get these photographers, some of them who are exceptional photographers, some of them who are professional photographers, but most of us are amateurs, and is to get them to take pictures of red birds, blue birds, orange birds, or just a really, really pretty bird on top of like Toyon red berries, and submit based on color for the photo contest itself. And that's kind of fun, because then we challenge their, I don't know, we just challenge them beyond just trying to get pictures of a species. We're trying to challenge their composition and their talent in a different way. So we're calling it Shoot the Rainbow, which I think is one of Kitty's, or I don't know if it's Bill's, but I just thought it was brilliant. So that's what we're trying to do. And it's a fundraiser for the San Francisco Bay Bird Observatory nonprofit organization. SFBBO is kind of unique in the fact that it's a science research organization that's focused specifically on research on bird behavior and on habitat. And it does a lot. I don't know how familiar everyone is with the salt ponds. I expect you are, because you all bike or walk around them, because a lot of the Bay Trail, certainly in Alviso and in Milpitas and in all the Don Edwards on both sides of the bay, go around all of those ponds that used to be red. You know, you can put in the chat if you used to see all the red ponds that aren't red anymore, because they used to be salt ponds and now they're not. Well, they're not because they've been restored from what they used to be, where Cargill used to take salt out of them, and a lot of them have been restored. And now there are these little islands that are man-made, and they were man-made in a form that attract birds. So, and even to the point where people from SFBBO volunteers go out with scientists that are employed. They have about, I believe they have about 14 biologists on staff now, and ecologists, and they go out and they stomp the mud sometimes to put divots in the mud, because some birds will only nest in divots, and they'll go out there, boom, 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 boom. And that's what they do, is they go out and make room for these birds to come in and nest. Yes, snowy plovers definitely nest in divots.
So I just want to say, Barbara, I'm really looking forward to the event. I'm signed up.
Yeah.
I'm not one of the more gifted photographers, but can you give me some kind of, is it unethical for you to give me some hint as to like what I could do to like maybe get one of my, like, is there some bird species that most people overlook?
Sure.
Like,
Yeah, well,
like-
do they overlook them? I don't know. I think the best thing you could do is take a picture of a whole bunch of different species in one. Well, I'll tell you what, Kitty put this really great one into the contest, which is, if you want to win the contest, find a picture that has a whole bunch of different colors in one picture.
Okay.
I think that's the best way to win. Oh, and she's telling me that, or Bill's telling me that we missed a northern flicker last year. People know what the northern flicker is? That's a good one.
So go try to find a northern flicker.
Well, northern flicker, I'll plug me on my website. You want to put my website up there? It's on my homepage. Anyways, but the northern flicker is, yeah.
We're
Yeah.
happy to plug your website. Feel free to, everyone should always feel free to publicize whatever they want in chat.
I think
And
it's
then
on there.
I'll be happy to add your website to our
It's in the chat.
webpage.
It's in the chat.
Let's
So-
move on. Thanks again. We always wrap up with happy trails.
Happy
But
trails.
We're not going anywhere because we love doing Q&A. We'll let
This was a
folks
great
unmute.
show. This is a great show.
Thanks, Barbara. Well, we're happy to have you. Really happy to have folks from the San Francisco Bay Bird Observatory and everyone else.
Until we meet again.
Some birds.
Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then. Who cares about the clouds if we're together? Just sing a song and bring the sunny weather. Happy trails to you until we meet again. Until we meet again.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. But now it's time for the after party. Do you want to remind everyone that we're going to doing this again the first Wednesday of May. Our topic is going to be the Richmond San Rafael Bridge and the effort to make sure that our access to that is permanent. Very important subject to me. There's going to be another topic. I haven't figured out what it is yet, but it'll be something cool. And I want to say thank you to a few people. Want to thank the folks who provide our music for the slideshow. And that was a friend of mine, Jason Myers, playing piano and singing Happy Trails. My wife, Sarah, is always extremely helpful. Went with me to Alviso and made really great suggestions. So thanks to everybody. And now I've made it possible for you to unmute, but we always like it when you raise your hand. It makes it a lot easier to maintain order. We just like to avoid having multiple people speaking at the same time. So if you can figure out how to do this, there should be a little button called reactions. And if you click on the raise hand, I'll know to call on you and I'll do that. Otherwise, if you really, if that's too complicated, I'm going to be looking out at folks with cameras on. And if you wave your hand at the camera, I will also call on you. But anyone want to jump in and question, comment? What are your thoughts on the Bay Trail Confidential, on today's show? Questions for our guests? What are folks thinking out there? I have to say, it was just really fun for me to work on this show. And Barbara, really grateful to have you guys from the San Francisco Bay Bird Observatory. You wanted me to point out you're not a staff member, you're a volunteer.
Right. I do a bunch. There's all sorts of things you can do for these guys. It's amazing.
And I'm a volunteer too. I do this. I mean, I feel like I'm very well compensated because I have so much fun going out and researching the topics for this show. So,
well, the history part of your show is just so fascinating, Rodney. I had no idea when I found out what you were doing. It's really a hidden gem because as a non-biker, the Bay Trails to me, I just walk. So there's no way I can do the whole Bay. I mean, I guess I could, but yeah, this is interesting. Very interesting, the historical part.
Let me ask you, Barbara, have you been to that spot in the Don Edwards Wildlife Refuge across from Drawbridge?
I have seen Drawbridge through my scope. Sorry, it's true. I have not walked that far, so I have to say, but I have seen it.
It's I mean, I'm kind of nuts about park benches. And one thing I didn't really talk about tonight, but I'm actually we're going to have a contest to pick the very best park bench. I don't even know what that means, but we know it'll be an awesome park bench on the Bay Trail. We're going to all vote on it, just like we vote on the best photograph.
Yeah.
And then I promise to go there and eat my lunch.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great. Sure. I sit on the park benches and take pictures of birds. So, I'm never taking pictures of the park bench.
Well, yeah, I always have my binoculars. I'm always ready for the bird. Birds are part of it. I eat my lunch. I look a little bit, I'm kind of getting there. I'm getting drawn into the whole bird. Um, I'm doing the big bird photo day. So
It's addictive. It's really addictive. It's hard to walk quickly. Like I never
about
get
if
any
I-
exercise.
if I could get a picture of big bird, would that count?
I'm just trying to think of the biggest bird I've ever taken. Photography is new. I only added photography about 4 years ago. So yeah, when I retired, I added photography. So, yep.
Well, thanks for being on the show. Other thoughts? Anyone want to chime in with whatever, Last time we had a really good suggestion about adding more information about transit to the Bay Trail. And I'm so glad to get that suggestion because I always try to avoid using my car. And it's just like another slide, just like, hey, here's how BART and then light rail and then a bus to Alviso. Alviso is not the easiest place to get to, but it can be done.
Hi, Rodney. It's Antoinette. Great
Antoinette.
show.
Oh, thanks. Antoinette, can I tell everybody who you are?
You can tell people who I am. Yeah.
Antoinette is with the Santa Clara County Park District, and she was the one who gave us the guided tour of Alviso. So it was Lee and Ross Heitkamp, who's with the Friends of the Stevens Creek Trail organization. And yeah, so what were your thoughts, Antoinette?
I'm looking forward to another show called Rodney's Alviso Obsession, because there's so many more things to do out there, and I'd love to join you just in my personal life to go out there and walk around those levees. You can actually walk, if you go around all the levee, there's a circle trail that's about 9 miles. Takes you almost all the way out to the bay.
I've done it. I've done everything on my bike, and
yeah, I know. You
I
have to
cover.
walk it. It's a great place, especially in the morning or early evening where you see more of the birds. But it's an oasis. So I'm glad that Lee got his first visit out there. That I was there to see his inaugural visit to Alviso.
No, and Lee, you definitely have to go back. And hey, so can I ask you, Antoinette, what do you think of that mural that I was kind of frothing over at the beginning?
I think it's pretty neat. I mean, I see it all the time when I go out there. I like that. I like Alviso, so I go out a lot, and I see that mural a lot. There's also a really neat one along, I think, on the side of the elementary school and stuff. And then there's more stuff because the Juan Bautista de Anza expedition went out to Alviso. So there's a lot more historic and cultural things out there. It's a neat town. It really is.
I'll tell everyone it's my favorite place on the Bay Trail, but the problem is I say that every single month. I said that about the Carquinez Strait. And, but Alviso is a place I'm definitely going to be going back there a lot. And yeah, I'd love to meet up with you. I didn't see that mural on the elementary school, so I thought I left no stone unturned. Apparently not.
Yeah, I think it's on the side of the elementary school. You have to kind of look for it and see, but it's a great little, I can't call it a town because it's part of San Jose, but a great little neighborhood.
Oh, you know what? I don't have to listen. I don't have to do it just because San Jose, basically San Jose annexed. There was a vote, and they did vote to be part of San Jose, but I know there's some bitterness about it. I don't have to recognize that.
No, I think Alviso is a town. It's still got a lot of historic significance.
It is. It's a great town on the Bay Trail. And we had Port Costa last month, which is another great town on the Bay Trail. We live in such a big place with, just this endless expanse of people, but we forget there are these little towns in our midst.
Yeah.
They're special.
Plus Alviso, non-COVID times, has some great Mexican restaurants, I tell you.
Oh, I hate to tell you, Antoinette, even in COVID times, I've been enjoying the Mexican food there, but I haven't been to Maria Elena's yet. And so
Yeah.
I think I missed that. That's like another thing that I have to get back and check that out.
Yeah, yeah. Usually there's a line around the block at noontime to get into that restaurant. So
I want to eat well.
It's a neat place. And then hopefully when the park opens up again and they start doing the boat tours, more people will, visit the site and go on those tours. And they can arrange them through the park's website, which is parkhere.org. So
I want to
Need
call
information.
on Gail. Gail has her hand raised. So go ahead and unmute. Oh, it's the Gilfillians.
It's
How are you
the
guys
Gill
doing?
Villains. We
Yeah.
wanted to say thank you, Rodney.
Thank you, Rodney.
It was awesome as always.
Well,
And we're excited about Alviso thanks to you.
oh, well, that's great. So Gail is there with her mother, Gretchen, and Gretchen is a great advocate for public space in our community of Kensington, California, and helps secure our public park. So it's just it's so fitting that you guys are part of all this.
And
You
a
know,
big birder.
I didn't know that. I know like Gretchen's license plate is hiking lady, but not just hiking lady, birding lady too.
Thank you, Rodney.
We're gonna come
Thank
up
you
and
very
visit you.
much.
We're gonna come up and visit you soon, Gretchen.
Okay.
Great. Well, that was wonderful. Anybody else? Ethel, do you have some thoughts to share?
No, but I do have two questions that came up in chat. And one, some people that came late, they're wondering when this is going to be shown again by with the recording. Do you know?
Yeah, it'll be soon. And it'll be, go to my website. It won't be done by tomorrow when I send out the survey, but it will be done probably by the weekend. And, I'll put the website, I'll put the website in chat right now. It's the show notes. So basically show6.baytrailconfidential.com. But I'll put that in there. It'll also be in the email tomorrow. And so that's our page. And I update that page with new stuff. It already has most of the basic stuff that we talked about, has the maps of all the places in Alviso. It has links to the San Francisco Bay Bird Observatory and how to participate in the Big Bird Day, which I know that's not what it's really called, but I'm going to call it that anyway. Big Bird Day.
I think that works.
Yeah, I don't know. You're going to get sick of
You
us.
may not
but-
appreciate it, but we will.
But that stuff's all there. It's supposed to be like something to make the show more useful to you guys.
And then
So-
the only other thing is, I don't want to ignore Sarah's question, and it's a really good one on top of it. She was wondering if all of the construction that's going on down by the ballpark, is that going to be where the parking is? What happens to all those lots? I mean,
Well, okay.
on game day,
I've
whew,
got two answers to that question. First of all, I'm a bicyclist. So
it doesn't matter for you,
it
but
doesn't matter to me.
that
think-
wasn't the question.
I think the problem is the solution, but actually, no. They are building a parking garage. If you think about it, again, I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but having this gigantic lot that like only allows one level of parking
Yeah.
is not exactly the best use of land. So I think there's gonna be a parking garage. I don't know if they're gonna replace all the parking spots that were lost. But I have to say, I think this project is gonna be a big step forward for that area.
Yeah, no doubt.
And if you don't like it, you can send me a nasty email. I can handle it.
We know you've got tough skin.
Yeah. Lee, anything from the Bay Trail project perspective to share?
No, other than it's always. I think the show gives it the kind of the idea of how diverse the Bay Trail really is. We move from kind of this very, very natural wetland space to what became this very urban area in San Francisco, that attracts a lot of different folks for different reasons, including the Giants. So
Yeah,
the experience that you can really get on the Bay Trail, it just gives you the idea of like the diversity and everything in between these two things that we talked about today.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing you get when you do go to a lot of different places on the Bay Trail is you just realize, oh, it's just different everywhere and interesting in so many places. I suppose we should have a contest to figure out like what is the most boring place on the Bay Trail. And I'm sure there is some place that's just going to be really dreadfully boring, but there's a lot. Like it sure as heck isn't Alviso. You know, I went to Alviso twice with the intention of going there and then going to Redwood City and finishing up my Bay Trail cred. And neither time I went by that mural. I couldn't leave. I could not like stop looking at that mural. And then I just realized I'm out of time. I have to turn around and go back to the BART station. So Alviso is fascinating. Anyone else want to jump in with thoughts? Should we can call it a wrap.
You know, before you call it a wrap, I mean, I just want to throw in about the ballpark. If you like Bloody Marys, Lefty O'Doul's Bloody Mary mix is really good.
Oh, I do like Bloody Marys. All right, I'm definitely looking forward to that. Ron has his hand raised. Ron, why don't you unmute?
Yeah, hi. So I just you kind of alluded to it when you said the Alviso there's a lot of connector trails there, and really it's kind of the nexus of all these trails that radiate out and kind of go everywhere. And sometimes I go to downtown San Jose and take the Guadalupe River Trail all the way to Alviso. And then once I'm in Alviso, then I have my choice of where to go. I could take the Bay Trail especially now when they built the Ravenswood connector in. I could theoretically take the Bay Trail all the way to Fremont by going because it's continuous all the way to the Dumbarton Bridge. The Dumbarton Bridge has a trail. You can take that into Don Edwards. You can take that to Coyote Hills. You can take that to the Alameda Creek Trail, and you can end up in Niles Canyon. On continuous trails.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, exactly. You could, like you're saying, you could do all that and not be on a road with cars almost anywhere.
Yeah, but you'd be really tired after all that.
Yeah, and since you're here, Ron, I just want to thank you again for your wonderful photographs. That really made the show. Particularly this one right behind me is from one of your photographs. I wanted a good image of that mural. So and that was today, by the way. So thank you so much.
Sure.
Keep taking photos.
Okay. Oh yeah, one other trail I want to mention is the San Tomas Aquino Creek Trail, which is like less than a mile from Alviso. If you take that trail, it goes right by Levi Stadium and the Great America Park. And right now at Levi Stadium, they're doing vaccinations. I went there one time before the Super Bowl at Levi Stadium, and I could see all the Super Bowl preparations they were doing there. And then you go by Great America when it's running, you can see all the rides and roller coasters and things.
Yeah, I want to do a show on the connector. Actually, I want to do a show on connector trails because they're really important. And on that show, we are going to talk about how the South Bay has the best connector trails. It's like the standard that the rest of them should really rise to. I know we have Ross Heitkamp in the audience. He works on the Friends of the Stephen Creek Trail. He took me. We rode from the Mountain View train station on that trail down to the Bay Trail. And it was just delightful, you know, and we didn't have any car exposure at all. And then we got to the Bay Trail and we rode that to Alviso. I think we had to there was one traffic light the whole way, if I'm not mistaken. And this is what you want when you're a bicyclist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Stevens Creek Trail is like kind of a display of bicycle trail engineering. You see those incredible bridges that they make there?
Yeah. They're really, we deserve the best, right? Yeah, it's funny. Those bridges are delightful. The Richmond San Rafael Bridge as a bridge itself is, it's just a way of getting from here to there, but it's really important that we have that access. It just opens up a whole world. And I'm really looking forward to talking about that next month. Because there's all these great places that if you live in Marin, you can get to in the East Bay and vice versa. Well, Paco, please, you always chime in.
Yeah.
What did you think? Did you like the show?
It was so fabulous. And here's my story. I really got vaccinated for second dose of Pfizer.
When did that happen? Today?
Last Monday.
And you're fine. You didn't have any kind of reaction?
Oh no.
Oh, so you're totally good to go.
Yeah. I really felt relaxed.
Well, here's the funny thing, Paco. You and I, we have never met in person. We've only met on Zoom.
Yes.
But I'm telling you, I'm not ready to announce a date quite yet, but I'm going to be doing in-person tours. It seems like pretty soon, like by mid-May, I
Uh-huh.
should have something scheduled, and I'd be delightful to have you in person on one of my tours.
Yes.
So we have that to look forward to. I'm
About
on.
2 weeks. I'm gonna be fully vaccinated in 2 weeks.
So you've got 2 weeks. I've got about 4 weeks because I'm doing number 2 on April 18th, and then I need to get Sarah fully vaccinated too, and then we're in the promised land. Okay, well, thank you, Paco. It's always great having you on our shows. Looking forward to doing one on Thursday.
It was so grateful of all of your pictures. I'm very grateful for all of your pictures.
I'm grateful to all the
Literally.
photographers, and maybe I should back up. Here's like, no, that's, here's like the photographers. And I'm so lucky that folks are generous with their talent. So good. I'll say good night to everybody. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you guys in a month, and there will be a recording that gets posted in the next couple days. So good night.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
Night, Rodney.